The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. So today is Dogen Day, the festival of Great Master Dogen, whom we deeply venerate, because he was Japanese, a monk, looking for a teacher, couldn't find one in Japan, went to China, a long way and very dangerous voyage, and went all over China looking for the teacher he could connect with. And finally, after a long time, he met Tendo Nyojo, Rujing, who passed the Dharma to him, and then he came back to Japan and spread it in Japan. And he wrote numerous works, the greatest of which is the Shobogenzo, which most of us have heard of. And so I'm going to do a little talk about a teaching from the Shobogenzo that I particularly love. It's in the first chapter on Bendawa. There's a little section. The Bendawa means undoing one's utmost in practicing the way of the Buddhas, as Reverend Hubert translated it. There's a little section in which Dogen just takes off and expounds gloriously on the benefits and the beauties and the joy and the virtue of meditation practice. And I was tempted just to read the thing to you, but I thought it's actually kind of hard sometimes to completely pay attention when somebody's reading something at length, so I'm just taking out little bits of it. But it's full of jewels, so I would suggest, if you would like to, read the section. It's in the Shobogenzo, on our website, Reverend Master Hubert's translation, and it's on page 4, just a couple of pages, and it's well worth checking out. But I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what he says. So talking about meditation, Great Master Dogen says, when we meditate, it affects everything and everybody, no exception. No matter who we are, no matter how poorly we think we meditate, our meditation practice affects everything and everybody. And when somebody has an awakening to truth, even if just a little momentary insight, everything awakens in a certain way. As he says, even though it may be merely for a moment, when someone, while sitting upright in meditation, puts the mark of the Buddha seal upon his actions of body, speech and mind, the whole physical universe and everything in it becomes and is the Buddha seal. All of space throughout becomes and is enlightenment. In an instant, everything turns the unparalleled great wheel of the Dharma as it opens up and gives expression to the profound wisdom that is of the ultimate, of the uncreated. It's wonderful, wonderful. We might think, well, that's great, but it doesn't really seem possible that one person's little awakening had this huge effect on the whole universe. Everything awakens. How do we know? How could we even fathom that? Well, how do we know? We don't know. And everything and everybody is deeply connected. So, why not? One person's little insight can affect everything. The whole universe. I mean, this is just this little planet. The whole universe is a huge thing. And who's to say it's not so? Rather than say, oh, I don't think so. Sounds great, but no. I think to actually think, yes, everything is affected. Everything is part of that great matter, the matter for which we train. We're all deeply connected to each other and to everything, far more than we might think. And it's not just for those who have an experience of the truth, not just for those advanced practitioners elsewhere. It's for us, all of us. Most of us don't think we're an advanced practitioner. And if we do, we might be in trouble. But it's for everybody, all of us. And Dogen says, those who sit in meditation, that's us, will beyond doubt drop off body and mind and cut themselves free from their previous confused and defiling thoughts and opinions in order to personally realize what the innate Dharma of the Buddha is. Well, Dogen's always going on about opinions. The thoughts and opinions, he says, is one of the greatest obstructions is our own thoughts and opinions. So he says we just have to do the meditation, and we will eventually let go of our confused and defiling thoughts of opinions and realize the truth. It just keep at it, just keep doing it. Sitting upright in meditation. Well, not everyone can sit upright. And that isn't a problem. If you have to meditate lying down or reclining or whatever, it doesn't prevent. Sitting upright helps you stay awake and be alert. But if you can't do that, you just do the best you can. Because the sitting upright that Dogen speaks about is more of an attitude of mind, of sitting upright, of stillness and awareness and reverence, paying attention to something greater than we are, being open to that. That's what he means by sitting upright. It's not just the physical posture, although that does help. Openness to something greater than we are. And this is why those confused thoughts and opinions get in our way, and why to drop off body and mind, i.e. to let go of all those thoughts and opinions, why it's essential to let go of all that, even if just for a moment, and let something shine through, Just letting go of our own discursive, endless thinking. He talks about people about realizing the truth by not fabricating anything within the hush of their meditation. I really like that. Well, our meditation may not always seem quite so hushed. Sometimes it just seems noisy. But there's a basis that we're trying to get to, that hush of our meditation, the stillness and quiet that we can come to. It's a very helpful piece of advice, just to be quiet. Try to have a quiet mind. Not to fabricate anything when we meditate, not to be cooking up things, cooking up stories for ourselves. Thoughts come and go, but we don't have to make something out of them. We don't have to knit together a little story for ourselves. We don't have to fabricate things. Well, it's easier said than done, as we know. Just when you find you've knitted a little garment of self, or a little garment of story, or whatever it is, you find we're doing that. Just come back. Just drop it to the ground. Just come back. It's an empty thing. It doesn't really exist. Just that little story we've created, that little project we've thought up, that thing that happened that we're worrying about, all those things, they don't actually exist right now. All we've got is this moment, and we're sitting still in meditation. That's all we've got. Everything else is just fabrications of the mind, like bubbles. At this very moment, he says, the lands of the earth with their trees and grasses, as well as the walls and fences with their tiles and stones, are all seen to be performing the work of Buddhas. Everything is part of Buddha nature. Everything. All beings, all the animate things, all the trees and grasses, and also the seemingly inanimate things, the walls and fences, tiles and stones, that rocks, mountains, all that stuff. Everything is performing the work of Buddhas. Everything is just being itself, doing its job as itself. Sometimes we see this for ourselves, especially if we're alone, because it's easy to get distracted when we're with other people. If we're out hiking with friends, out in the mountains, beautiful, we live in this beautiful place, or we might be talking and not really noticing what's around us. You'd be chatting away and out there among the mountains and stuff, and kind of missing stuff. But if we're by ourselves, or we all just stop for a minute and look, we see all these little birds and animals and trees and bushes and things. This beautiful stuff they have all around us, and we miss it if we're too caught up in our own mind or in our thoughts and our talking and stuff. Just noticing what's there more when we're quiet. And sometimes it's easier to be quiet when we're alone. Gratitude for all this, when we just look and see what's there. They're so grateful, it's so beautiful. And if we're all caught up in our own mind, we can miss all that. So, just to let it, everything's all performing the work of Buddhas. And sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. When I'm alone on retreat, I tend to notice the things that help me, the things I use, and they're kind of faithful service. They're just sitting there quietly, patiently, waiting to be of service. And it can sound as though it's all about me. They're just here waiting to help me. But it's not like that at all. It's the opposite exactly. When I'm not being a me, I notice these things much more. And when we're alone, we're not a me. We're not just seeing ourselves reflected in the eyes of others, as it were. We can just do stuff. We don't have to be a somebody. We just do things. And we can notice more the things that are around us, the things we use, the wood stove, the pots and pans, the hammers, the pliers, all the things we might use. And we don't think as that they're there just for our use. They have their intrinsic value. Everything has its intrinsic value. It's there because it's there. It has value because it's there. It just has to be there. It doesn't have to be doing something. A hammer's just sitting there. Yes, it's built to be a hammer, but even when it's not hammering anything, it has its intrinsic worth. It's just there. And when we're on our own, we tend to notice this more, just by being there. And they give themselves to us to use, very kind of them, but their intrinsic value has nothing to do with us. They're just there. And again, we can feel gratitude for all these things that allow us to use them. The hammer doesn't jump up and say, I'm off today, no. This sounds ridiculous, I know. But when we're there on our own with things, whether we're in our room, whether we're at work, or even not on our own, but with other people sometimes with things, we notice the things that are here that help us. All these things. Here's this hall that protects us from the rain and the sun and the smoke and all that. We take it for granted. Maybe we come in, there's the Buddha, the beautiful altar. All these things around us. Sometimes it's really obvious that it's a big thing. Sometimes it's just our simple little thing we have in our room, our computer that we might curse or we might be grateful to. All these things we can actually be grateful for rather than just use them carelessly, When we're done with something, not just to chuck it out without another thought, but to be grateful for it. Or we don't need something anymore, find a new use for it. We've been clearing out all these things out of our cupboards and finding uses for them, putting things out at the gate. People take them. They take them. They want them. They need them. It's wonderful because we can move things along that we don't need and somebody else can make use of them. This is a huge blessing, rather than just take them to the dump, which is really sad. We try not to do that more than we have to. And sometimes that's all you can do, But even taking things to the dump, we can do it respectfully and kindly and with gratitude. Not wasting things, not squandering things, but being grateful for all the things in our lives. And then, as I said, when we're with other people, this intrinsic value kind of recedes into the background. Here we are with things on our own or working with things, and then people come and we forget about them, we just deal with them. And we can miss that, the intrinsic value and worth of just things in themselves. Things, animals, plants, everything. People, of course. But it's still there, as Dogen says. At no time does the vegetation or the earth from which it springs cease to send forth great luminosity as they give expression to the profoundly subtle Dharma. Both vegetation and walls clearly and effectively let the Dharma be known in the world, for the sake of all forms of sentient beings. The vegetation and walls, all the things, all the plants, tiles, wooden posts and so forth. Reverend Hubert says in a footnote that vegetation refers to all the growing things, and walls to inorganic things like rocks and stones and tiles and pebbles. And everything sends forth this great luminosity. Everything gives expression to the Dharma. Everything has that intrinsic value. Whether we see it or not, it's still there. And if our pots and pans are giving forth great luminosity, then surely we are too. We just don't always see it, We can get in our own way with all our confused and defiling thoughts and opinions. But it's still there. We can't really obstruct that great luminosity. It's still there. No matter what we do, it's there. And when we're quiet, sometimes we see it, and sometimes we don't. But we can trust that it's there, and we can treat things accordingly. They are part of that great luminosity, as we are. And Dogen says, this is why even the meditating of just one person at one time harmonizes with and is at one with all forms of being, as it tranquilly permeates all times. It is the same practice, in no way different for all, just as it is the same realization and personal certifying by all. It's not just for advanced practitioners, those people over there, it's for all of us. Dogen wants to inspire us to see that we're all part of that great matter, the great luminosity. We're all part of Buddha nature. The meditating of just one person at one time. It doesn't say of some great person, it's one person at one time. Expresses this great luminosity. It harmonizes with and is at one with all forms of being, the animate and inanimate, all these things. In no way different for all. It's the same thing for all of us. Our training affects everything. Everything affects us. In every body, nothing and nobody is left out. And this is joyful, actually. When we see that, or even when we just come back to that, to just contemplating that everything affects everything else, and our training affects everything, and everything helps us. There's a joyfulness there, you know. We just started our training term yesterday, and there's a feeling of joyfulness. You come to the end of the summer and you sort of start thinking, okay, here we go, you know, and then the training term starts. And although our schedule hasn't dramatically changed, there's something different. Somehow the gears kick in a different way, and we think, here we are. It's the training term. We're doing it. Wonderful. Here we are. We wouldn't want to be elsewhere. This joyful aspect of our practice, I think, is always good to remember that and come back to it. It's joyful. Even when we don't feel joyful, there's a basic joyfulness. When we sit in meditation, there's an underlying peace of heart that comes because we know this is good to do. Even if we feel our meditation is terrible, if we can let go of that judgment, just to say, here it is, I'm doing my best. And my best is enough. It doesn't have to be the great illumination. It doesn't have to be the perfect thing, but just that sitting faithfully, doing my best to let go of all those confused thoughts and opinions, just to sit still in the midst of it, and to turn to that great luminosity, whether I see it or not. This is truly joyful. At the bottom of all this is the teaching of no separate self, anatta, no separate self in anything. Because when we're full of ourself, we're full of our confused and defiling thoughts and opinions, we seem to cut ourselves off from other people and other things. We get stuck in our own little mind, our own little shell of our own concerns, our worries, or whatever it is. We may be acting kindly, but there's something that we just kind of miss things, you know. And when we sit still and let all that go, not just in meditation, but other times too, you know, driving, just being part of the stream of traffic, not thinking as me trying to get my, you know, there's somebody cutting in front of me and I want to get ahead of that person now, all this, you know, not that, but just saying, here we all are, driving along this road together, maybe going in different ways, we're all on this road together, we're all on this path together. We can see ourselves as just part of that massive, that sort of stream of beings, rather than a separate little, you know, cell in that stream. It makes a whole difference to how we do it, to how we think of it, to how we drive. Probably drive better. It's just a different attitude of mind, seeing ourselves as part of everything, not as some little separate me against everything else, you know. Because when we sit still, when we let go of all that me and my concerns and what I want and what I need to do and what I just, we let go of all that. We're all more able to see that we are just part of that whole. Even in something as simple as just driving down the road or talking to somebody or doing our work or whatever it might be. Just to remember that we're just part of everything. There really isn't a separate me at all. It's just a little self-bubble which can dissolve at any moment. Look, if I'm stuck in my little self-bubble, no matter where I am, I can't see anything really. Or I can see it through a sort of dark haze of me, but I just let that little bubble dissolve. Oh, there's something much bigger, I'm just part of something a whole lot bigger. I don't have to worry so much. Worry about my own little concerns, worry about my life, worry about all the things. I don't have to worry. I can just let it go. And we do worry. It comes back and then, it's all right. There's something bigger that takes care of us all. I don't have to be worried about everything. And as I said, when we're alone, we might notice more and we might feel less like a self. But we can still do that in the midst of other beings, like when we're driving, In the midst of other beings, we can know that we're part of that great thing. Standing on the subway, squashed against other beings. We're all there together. All there together, There's something about it. If you can think of it that way, rather than, here I am squashed among all these awful people, I don't know them and don't like them, and I'm sure they're all horrible, and they're waiting just to shoot me or something. But no, actually, they're just human beings like me. If we have a moment of insight, one of those moments of insight it talks about, it has nothing to do with us, nothing to do with a me. Here I am having a moment of insight. Nothing like that at all. It's more like something much bigger. I'm not even in the picture. Just there's something a whole lot bigger. And yes, we're intrinsically a part of that, but we're not even thinking about that. We just see something bigger than me and my little concerns. At the end of this beautiful section, I think it's one of the most beautiful things that Dogen writes, actually, this lovely section. At the end of this, he says, everyone has their own original face, their own original nature, as well as their own training and practice to do, all of which are beyond the fathoming of human speculations. Yes, we all have our own original face, our own practice, and yet we are all part of that great matter. He goes on, you must realize that even if all the Buddhas, who are as immeasurable as the sands of the Ganges, if all of those Buddhas were to exercise their spiritual strengths and attempt to gauge the meditation of a single person by means of their awakened Buddha wisdom, they would be unable to reach its boundaries, try as they might to fathom them. This is an enormous statement. Even the Buddhas couldn't measure the worth and the benefits of the meditation of one single person, our little moment of struggling to bring our mind back. Buddhas couldn't measure the worth of that effort. So how can we judge the merits of our practice? We can't. So all we can do is just keep on the way, always going on, always becoming Buddha. Keep on doing the training and never doubt its value. And that's Great Master Dogen's teaching for us today. Thank you.